Ladies and germs, cats and kittens, welcome to our final tutorial of the semester. Can you believe it? It's our week 14 tutorial, project 2, invertible cannons in 3 voices. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get cracking. First of all, steps to follow. Choose a mode and write the soggetto, or what we'll also call the A module, with the text that you're setting. Then decide on an entry order and time interval and lay out each of the A modules. Then what you want to do is you want to add a B module to your soggetti. That's a module that will be strictly imitated the first 2 times around, but not in the third entry necessarily. You can be a bit more flexible there. Then we're going to skip the middle part, go straight to the final cadence of the first section. So we're looking at a total of 40 whole notes for the whole composition. Since we're doing part 1 only this time, we're going to go up to 20 whole notes, so about 10 measures in 2/1, which is what I've chosen to do. After that, we're going to after the third entry, we're going to break the soggetto, the B module of the soggetto to free counterpoint and move towards our first evaded cadence. Then we're going to use the techniques that we've studied to fill in the remaining measures in first species. So that's all the parallel 6, parallel tense, faux bourdon, and so on. Then we'll take that first species, we're going to embellish it, except for the suspensions, and then finally embellish the suspensions last of all. So here is the soggetto that I chose to do. I chose a Mixolydian mode, and you'll notice that I chose to set the Benedictus, which is what everyone is doing. And I tried to use the melody to follow the vocal prosody, right? So Benedictus, because you don't say Benedictus, which is weird. That's Benedi, right? The high sound comes on the D, so that's kind of the accent of the word. You will notice something a little bit odd in this soggetto, and that is the fact that I use a non-characteristic skip of the mode. I have a good reason for this, and we'll see that in just a moment. But for now, let's listen to the opening. Okay, so now we're going to take care of all the A modules, and we're going to put them one after the other. Not adding any counterpoint, just trying to cite where the A modules will work best. I've chosen a 2 whole note time interval because that means every new soggetto enters as an agent of a suspension, which I always love. So you'll note that since I started in Mixolydian mode on A, the next entry comes a fifth above, or in the plagal mode, the hypomixolydian, and then the other one comes in a fifth above, but an octave below, also in the hypomixolydian. So both of these are in hypomixolydian, while the middle voice is in mixolydian, as it should be. One more thing to note is that now I think we might come to understand why I chose to do the non-characteristic skip in the authentic mode, because when we move to the plagal mode, which is overrepresented here, we get characteristic skips. So 2-1, I think I come out ahead in that particular bargain. Let's give the opening a listen to. After that, we're going to add B modules. So these are the modules that imitate strictly until we get to the third voice. For now, I'm going to imitate all of them strictly because we're just working on the beginning straight up. So you'll see that the B modules are all of these right here. Now let's listen to the opening with these involved. Sort of an abrupt ending there. Next, we're going to lay out our final cadence. Now you'll note that I've adjusted the B module of the third entry, which we are absolutely allowed to do. You're not under any obligation to keep that B module in the third entry only the same. The other 2 have to be strict, but not the third one. And you'll note that I've added a cadence at the end, so let's listen. You'll notice that the cadence is to the fifth above the final, which is what is supposed to happen for the end of part one. The end of part two, you're going to obviously come to the final of the mode. Okay, so now after we've done that, we're going to do some free counterpoint to fill in our first evaded cadence about halfway through, or about at the 10th whole note thereabouts, and then we're going to use techniques to do to lead from that cadence to the proper cadence in the fifth above the final. So you'll note here is the evaded cadence now, pardon me, fully fleshed out. And I've decided to use parallel 10th technique for 3 whole notes, and then parallel 6th technique for 3 whole notes leading into the cadence. Almost became Packable's Canon for a hot second there. Okay, so I don't think there's anything left to say about this particularly. I don't think I made any other changes. You'll note that anytime I'm doing cross voicing, I put my my numbers in brackets, the interval numbers in brackets, just so that I know that I'm cross voicing. I know a number of you have done that, and I thought that was a great idea, so I have adopted it. Okay, let's move on to the embellishment of this basic structure. So I'm not going to comment in great detail about it, but there are some niggling points that I'll bring up that cost me some time in trying to figure out how to make them work. So let's give this a listen to, well, actually, let's talk about the niggling points first, and then we'll listen to it. And Cowboy-chan is right here next to me, and she's about to try and bite the cord of my headphones, and she's licking my nose because she is trying to tell me that it is dinner time. Okay, so first of all, the big problem area in this is this purple rectangle here. I came at this all kinds of different ways, and it was really kind of frustrating. This particular one, it works fine. I'm a little bit dubious about the cross voicing because we are in a parallel 10th model, and so if I cross voice, am I not destroying the parallel 10ths? So that middle voice going down below what is creating the parallel 10ths, I thought was a little bit weird. But most of all, when I listened to this, there was something that really struck me that I hated, and it was this unison. It's legal, as it is on a weaker beat. However, it just didn't, it felt like, particularly with the resolution of the suspension above it, it felt like this just did not work for me. So you'll also note that there's a register error. We go beyond a 12th. I mean, that's not a huge mistake, but it is a mistake, and it kind of irked me anyway. So these two things are things that I'm going to try and flesh out and fix for the final embellishment stage. But the rest of it, I'm fairly confident works pretty well. So let's give it a listen. Okay, finally we end up with our final embellishment stage. This is the stage where I embellish the suspensions. I always do this last because you want to give your counterpoint the freest rein possible, because any suspension embellishments are just, I mean, really just add-ons, and the embellishment of the first species structure is the meat and potatoes of this. So always embellish your first species first and then do your suspensions, because the suspensions are just bells and whistles at the end, and you don't want to end up in a situation where you're contradicting your meat and potatoes just for your bells and whistles, if that makes any sense. So you'll note that I've done in 3 places, I've done embellishments, the standard cadential embellishment last, and then a couple of escape tones here and there that work with the counterpoint, the prevailing counterpoint. Remember, it always has to be it always has to be consonant. I noticed that I made a mistake there in the first one in the numbers. For those of you paying close attention at home, it should be on measure 2 of the second system. The alto is on F, moving to G, and the soprano is on D, moving to E. So that should be 6/6, not 6/7, for those of you keeping your scorecards up to date. Okay, so now you'll also notice that I made a big change here. It doesn't look anything like it did before, and that was really to avoid that cross voicing. However, I did forget to change the numbers, so sorry about that. They really should read 6, 6, 7, 8, 7, which of course means that we've got an error here where the 7th isn't properly resolved. I originally had it as 2 eighth notes moving down to the E, but if you look at the upper voice, that would make F to C, E to B, so we'd have parallel fifths there. Ultimately, I think to resolve this error, the best way to do it is to just put a half note on the A in the middle voice instead of those 2 quarter notes, and that should pretty much take care of it. So this is the whole shebang. Let's give it a listen. If you're paying careful attention, you'll also notice that I knocked out the bass voice at the start of the second system. That was to take more wind out of the sails of that cadence to make it even weaker, essentially. And I did add a second evaded cadence, which if you were carefully watching, you will see in the second measure where I make a cadence to A. That doesn't quite sound super final in any sense of the word. The reason I cadenced to A is simply because that was what was possible given the contrapuntal structure. So that was going to be an evaded cadence anyway, because A is not an important note in the firmament of G Mixolydian. So in this case, it passes as a hot knife through butter. I realize it says on the instructions that you are to do 2 evaded cadences per part. I think I'm going to relax that and just say that you need to do 1 evaded cadence per part. I've done 2 here. If you want to do 2, then call yourself fancy. Please do so. Other than that, that's it for this example. So coming up, we've got Project 2, Part 1. That's the only thing that I'm going to expect any of you to do for next week, and it's not really an expectation. It's more like if you want to have a meeting and go over Part 1, feel free to email me and we'll work out a time and do that. But otherwise, the final Project 2 is due on Wednesday, 6th of May at 11:59 p.m. So I hope that I wish you luck on the rest of this project. Let me know if you want to have a meeting. I'm happy to do so. And otherwise, it's been a great pleasure working with all of you this semester. Y'all have really done a great job understanding the rules of counterpoint, particularly suspensions, which, man, are always some of the hardest things to teach. And I think y'all have done a really good job. So proud of you. And let's see this one through to the end. Take care.